Hello, everyone. Welcome to Conversations. My name is Bimbo David, and with me today is.
Yemi David, glad to be with us. Thanks for the feedbacks we've gotten from all the past episodes. Everywhere we go, people have been, should we say, blessed,
Yeah.
and the feedback has been very,
We are
very,
truly delighted to have everyone's comments,
yeah,
followers, and we would like to encourage you to keep sharing, and be a part of this community.
yeah. Conversations is there to add value to our relationships, whether you're single or married.
Conversations.
So today, we have something interesting to talk about, something that is, getting a bit prevalent in certain homes. The issue of love in marriage, and with respect to the fact that they're married, you hear situations where married couples are falling out of love, though married. Married couples living in the same home but strangers, and then they're quite sometimes can be quite delicate, quite sensitive issues. Well, we might not be able to talk about the sensitive issues or some of those issues because sometimes it requires much more conversations, counselors and all. But we would talk about, the basics. Sometimes you get to the point where you're not happy with your spouse. And it lingers on to the point where you're not even willing to stay in the same space with them.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about that,
Conversations.
So have there been times when you felt like that?
Well, I mean, for me, it's like any other thing you have in a container that drips, like leaks. It's almost like saying love has leaked off, or leaked out, and then it's at a low level. And if you don't really pay attention to that, both the container and the everything will be out of the house. And that's what happens to people. The next thing you find that they're out, getting maybe a divorce or completely separated. So when you notice that the thing is just going down, you just know that's at the lowest level, which we shouldn't allow anyway. We should learn to refill. I think because we're like spending it. The way you spend currencies, I believe people spend love. All
Yeah.
our interactions, our conversations, you are spending something, and there's a level. If you are discerning, you can tell that this thing is running on empty, or it's almost approaching a deficit. And I want to encourage that we show responsibility by refilling. We refill everything. Our airtime on our phones. We subscribe to things and pay subscriptions. So when it comes to love, the question is, what is your plan for a refill? What is your plan for updating? What is your plan not to allow it to just leak?
But you see, so that refilling, I think, is important, but it can be difficult.
Yeah.
Refilling love when someone is hurt, someone doesn't want to forgive, someone doesn't want to communicate, someone doesn't want to. One party is not even being willing. So how then do you refill? Because there are times when, even for us, there are times when I'm not happy, he's not happy with me. And sometimes it can linger for a few, maybe a week or two, even sometimes longer.
2 weeks. No, that was that early in the marriage. Now that Jesus Christ has entered my life very well. 2 weeks. No.
No,
How would I
okay.
preach on Sunday very well like that?
Wait now. So what you just said is just obvious to men, because it's easy for men to move on, and for them they will think it is settled, it is over. But you're moving on, and for me, like, we have not even talked about it, or we've not even reached. We are just skimming the surface, and it's like that too. I think for us, maybe, I guess our spiritual lives and our work with God helps, because apart from preaching in church,
Can I say that again? Our spiritual life and our
lives
work
and our
with
work with God,
makes-
apart from church, just the fact that you're going to talk to God. The Holy
Yeah.
Spirit will
Yeah.
convict you
Yeah.
that you haven't spoken to your husband, or you need to forgive, you need to let go, or you need to talk about this. That makes it easy. However, there are times when it can be difficult. Someone doesn't want to talk. Someone is over emphasizing what the other person did, and the person is like, it's okay now, let's move on. Or someone is not even willing, so how,
But before it gets to somebody not willing, somebody unwillingness to move on, it means some things have been happening. Should I use the word repeated damage? Okay. Let me come to some basics.
repeated damage.
Yeah, some basics. Number one, we are in this generation where people define love strangely. So what is this love?
Yeah.
One of the attributes of this love is it's not self-centered.
Yeah.
God is love. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. So love, this love we're talking about, except you are talking about another kind of love. But this love that is supposed to help our relationship, whether you're single or married, especially in the marriage setting, is not self-centered. It's not selfish. So if that is there, then I'm not always, even when you are okay, and the other person is not okay, then you are not really, really okay. But if you are selfish and it's all about yourself, you don't even care whether the person is okay or not. And that's why I just want to talk about this love definition. And scripture says God is love. God does not have love or increase in love. God is love. So if I claim to know God, if I claim to pray to God, then I should be growing in that kind of love that is not selfish. So if that is there as a foundation and things happen where one party is unwilling to move on, maybe it's an alarm that, something must have really... I don't think somebody can just wake up one morning and be unwilling to move on. There must have been some repeated damage. Now, that repeated damage might not have been intentional, and it could have been intentional, but just agree that there must be more to this that I'm willing to accept, so that you don't become also selfish by just saying, I have apologized, now let's move on. No, that could be a bit selfish because you are looking at, I've explained or I've apologized. Maybe there seems to be more to it. Can you allow that space for some more communication?
Communication. That's what
allowing
I was
the
going to
person.
talk
Okay,
about.
why don't you want to move on? I think we should move on. Let the person explain why he or she doesn't want to move on, and be willing to understand it from their perspective. That is love.
So that I
But
think
for men, we are not that patient, so we need to just cultivate that
I
patience.
think we actually need to talk about communication, because communication is like the backbone. There are times when, even when it comes to not being self-centered, so I won't say it's being self-centered. I want to paint a scenario. We are both pastors, and there have been times when we have had to talk about, okay, my husband giving more time to church work. It's not being self-centered. At
I
that
don't
part,
understand.
wait,
Like,
wait,
is it-
calm
no, I want to be
down.
sure.
Be
Are you just
calming
giving an
down.
analysis or
It is something that has happened.
me? No, I don't think
Oh
so.
my
Church?
gosh.
Ha,
Wait
Karabashi.
now. Really just be patient.
I know you explain. You explain.
I was about to explain.
Okay, church. I try you.
Oh, Lord of heaven.
Go ahead.
There have been times when he would say, okay, he
Okay.
travels, for instance, and is not so. There are periods or seasons
It's
where,
intense, right?
where at that particular season is not available.
Yeah.
But what helps is that we talk about it, and he says, I know that, okay, this particular, not just for me, even with the kids. And I then explain that, you know what, okay, daddy is not around
true,
this
that's
particular season, or I know that he's not around this particular season. And then when he comes back, he has to compensate for that
That's
absence.
fantastic.
So now you're saying it's fantastic.
Yeah, because that's what happens. When you first started, you are making it look like I abandon you for church.
You need to be calming down and wait.
No,
That we talked
it's
about.
when you started it. That you have started that. For instance, my husband.
I will start it the way I want to start it. You just be patient.
Okay. Go ahead.
So what I'm trying to say in essence is that there are times when if one party, and it could go either way, one or maybe even the wife may say, you know, this particular season, I want to spend time with myself. I want to do things. I want to pay attention to myself, especially for women that have been, maybe they have older children and they've gotten to a point where, look, I need some me time. And it might look like, is it not being self-centered? But no, at that particular time, that person needs that space. But that communication has to come in where each person is talking to one another and saying that this is what is happening to me at this season. Can you just give me some time to deal with this? And it's done. But when it's not being communicated, that's where someone thinks that the other person is being self-centered or selfish, not paying attention to them, and the other person, don't you understand that I'm going through this? Don't you understand that we need money in the house? Don't you understand I need to work harder? So communication is so key before situations, during situations, and after. Communication is really, really key to explain where you're at that level.
Conversations.
That's thank you, Mrs. Bimbo David, for that. I mean, that is the major, because for us men, one of the things I realize about men is we try to handle everything by ourselves. That gang attitude. So we now don't communicate. You want to resolve all the financial problems, all the personal problems by yourself, and then you don't talk to your children. You don't even explain to your wife, not with a bad intention, but learn this: when you're not talking, Satan might be talking. That's what I realized. It happened in the Garden of Eden anyway. The moment you're not talking, the enemy takes advantage of it to create all kinds of interpretation. So you are busy. You're not explaining why you are busy. The enemy can be telling your spouse he doesn't care for you. That work is more important to her or him than you. And it wasn't like that because you didn't really communicate. So I want to just use this opportunity to, if you love someone, you have to treat them like a human being. It's a dog or a cat that you might not need to explain anything to, just leave the house, right? Come back, pat the head of the dog, and just move on. But a human being,
Even children.
yeah, children.
Yeah.
I tell her, even our own staff, our colleagues in the office, communication resolves a lot. Opening up some details, it helps the person to understand and then allow their input. And then she also mentioned something about compensation. I mean, something happened just like last weekend. I was in Abuja on Friday for a meeting, almost all through Friday. And then on Saturday, came back in the evening, had to do church on Sunday morning, preaching church in the morning. After the church service, had to go and preach somewhere. It doesn't happen every Sunday like that, but I had to go to preach somewhere. And then after preaching there, I had to do another meeting in the church in the evening. That Sunday was, But on Monday, I had to rest, and thankfully she took the family out for dinner. Is it dinner we call that? Yeah, maybe late afternoon.
Yeah.
Somewhere in Ikeja, Lagos. And it was a way of compensating even on my behalf, but with the children, we ate, we went to pick them from school
And
together.
I paid.
She paid, and I'm very happy she paid. Guess what? I was even tempted to, when I asked for the bill, because all those monies those payments, or what do you call it, the bills, have skyrocketed in those restaurants. So when they mentioned the bill, I was actually feeling for her. So I wanted to actually add. But I said no. They call her pastor.
What do you mean by that?
I was very happy she paid. It's
I
much.
was happy to pay, not because I'm pastor.
I know, but I said the more she pays, the more God blesses her. She keeps. So I was happy she paid, and it was a very nice restaurant. So maybe I should say thank you. I enjoyed the meal.
Maybe
In fact,
you should
that
say
meal,
thank you, or you should say thank you.
I said thank you yesterday now. The one I've been paying for since ago. Anyway, the bill, the thing we ate there, I won't lie, I enjoyed it so much that I took them to the house, takeaway, and I ate some of them in the office today. I think the thank you must be times 3. Thank you. But jokes apart, I think we should learn to really communicate. A lot of confusion, a lot of disharmony, a lot of leakage happen when people don't communicate adequately. Somebody might say, I told him, I told her, but was it adequate? Especially for us men, we didn't grow up with explaining ourselves. You see it more like you are being subservient to somebody. Why should I tell her everything?
And sweetheart, sometimes it's also an issue of background. some people don't know how to communicate, not because they don't want to, but it's not something that they're used to doing. So I would suggest that people should start small, start on a low level, and then upgrade, in the sense that I know a number of people, that are very reserved, even men. Well, most men, I don't want to say men don't talk, men talk with their people, you know. But there are certain people that are more reserved, and it takes a lot for them to come out and talk. So each party or unique couples need to understand themselves and don't put pressure on one another, because you go out there, you see another man that is expressive, and then you come home, your own husband is not expressive, and then you're putting pressure on him.